Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and I'm freaking exhausted, but I am here. We are back from South by Southwest. Somehow we have made it through the festival, and I see the other guys yawning on
We
camera.
are sick and tired. We're sick and tired.
That's right. Your favorite, we hope, question mark, husky, hairy, huggable homos are here. That's our fifth H to dish up some highlights from South by Southwest film, as well as review Midnight Special, the new sci-fi mystery film thing. I don't even know how you categorize it. Starring Michael Shannon, Joel Edgerton, Kirsten Dunst, and Adam Driver, Kylo Ren, and of course, is it Jaeden Lieberher? Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm not sure. But yeah, we're going to be talking Midnight Special, which we also saw at the festival. But before we get into all of that, let me just introduce or reintroduce or whatever, give a shout out to my co-host. Jim Poliafco is here. Welcome, Jim.
I am here, and I am probably the least sick and least tired of the three of us. But it's a good kind of sick and tired, right? To be back here after South by and so many movies, and which we'll talk about. But hello and welcome to the podcast, everybody.
Woo, woo. And Will Lindis is here as well. Welcome, Will.
Hey there, welcome back to the show, movie fans. I apologize in advance if my voice cracks or just sounds otherwise shitty tonight. I caught the... it's like the con crud, but, you know, whatever you get at a festival, and am recovering from that right now. But 100% worth it. I had a blast at South by Southwest, and we'll talk very soon about why.
Mm-hmm. If sneezing your insides out is the price you pay, buy a ticket. Right?
Worth every sneeze.
Well, we already have some folks hanging out with us live on our Google Hangout here, so just want to give a quick shout out to you folks. Not sure if you're here to hear about South by or to hear about Midnight Special, but whatever reason you're here for, we're glad to have you. So I think what we'll do is we're just going to talk about some films coming out of South by that you may get to see, hopefully, at some point, if all of them are picked up and distributed, and films that, like Hello, My Name is Doris, you may not see for a year or two, depending on when it gets picked up, or even if it gets picked up. But there's still great films to talk about, so we'll definitely dive into that. First things, guys, I just want to ask, like, what were your thoughts on this year's festival compared to previous years? Do you think that the lineup was a little better quality, or do you think it was I don't know, different? What's your thought, Jim?
I don't know if it's better or not as good. I mean, it's certainly a high quality lineup. I think they have very diverse lineup in terms of, movie genres and movie prominence. I mean, there were some headliner movies that were pretty awesome, like Midnight Special, which we're going to talk about, and Demolition, the new Jake Gyllenhaal movie. As usual, there was a great slate of what you might call maybe independent movies that either are or are not picked up by a studio yet, and it remains to be seen what kind of distribution they're going to get. But yeah, I mean, put it this way, we saw somewhere in the range of 30 to 32 movies each, right? And we saw most of what we wanted to see, but I did not see everything that I wanted to see that I considered to be a very interesting movie. Nor did we see everything that won awards. South by either grand jury awards or audience awards. We just didn't have time. We just ran out of time. And that's the thing about a festival like South by, where you have time to maybe watch 30 or slightly over 30 films during a week. But there are like 250-something titles being shown at the festival, just films alone. So you're only scratching the surface, seeing maybe 10%, 15% of the movies at the most. So yeah, I mean, I didn't see any drop off in movie quality. I mean, the festival is run fantastically, and those of us who are lucky enough to get film badges or whatever are afforded the opportunity to get into more movies. But but yeah, I thought all the volunteers that make that thing run, it's crazy how much they make the festival and experience very, very easy for those of us who are attending movies. But yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of this year's South by.
How about you, Will?
Yeah, I gotta say I agree. This is a fantastic film festival. There's a lot of great things on the docket here every year. In fact, if I'm comparing to last year, I would say that I feel like this year, for me personally, had a higher per film average than last year overall. In that there were maybe a couple of films this year that didn't connect with me, but I don't think I saw anything that I actively disliked. Well, there were maybe 2 or 3 films last year that fell in that category. So, lots of really good things. A few things that really blew me out of the water. Things I'll carry with me and kind of be thinking about for a while. So, for me, that makes for a great film festival.
Yeah, definitely. I think the slate of films this year was pretty good, and we're going to talk about some of them here in just a second. I would say there's probably a few more this year that stuck with me than last year, which is a good sign. One thing I find interesting, though, we were lucky enough to get in as press, so we didn't actually have to pay to go into the festival. We paid a lot for kolaches every morning, but we didn't have to
every morning.
Well, we didn't pay in film badge access. We made up for kolaches.
But it's interesting. I mean, we saw 30 plus films, but I've been talking to other press that went that saw 10 or less films, and we're maybe only there for a couple of days. So I feel really lucky that we were able to take 8 days away from work and everything that we had going on to see as many movies that we did. I think we're pretty lucky that our personal lives were able to weather our film addiction as we did that. Because, man, it's crazy doing that. You wouldn't think you'd get exhausted from watching movies all day, but my butt still hurts, guys. And I just said that on the podcast, but from just sitting all that, I don't know, it's crazy. I mean, we did some walking too, but a little crazy. But speaking of films that tripped our trigger, want to give a quick shout out to director Otis Mass for The Incomparable Rose Hartman. Otis is a director that we had a chance to screen his movie at the festival. He's a pretty cute bear guy, but more importantly, his film was received to rave reviews. We got to have lunch with him after we saw the film, which was great hanging out with him and kind of hearing some of his stories and talking about how the film came to be and working with Rose Hartman. So, Otis, definitely congratulations. Well done. Hope to see some other great films coming out for you. But, guys, once The Incomparable Rose Hartman is available, when it's being distributed and you're able to see it, definitely worth your time. Would you guys agree on that one? Is that a solid lock?
Oh, very much agree. This is a type of film that I think is very accessible. If anyone that's seen my pictures on Facebook or on the podcast knows that I'm not necessarily an icon of style. I am definitely a t-shirt and pants, shorts type guy. And so I didn't know much about the subject of this Rose Hartman going into it. But you didn't need to. This film was set up to where anyone can go in and kind of learn about this character. She's a very interesting character, learn about the world that she inhabits and kind of the way she interacts with other people. So definitely recommended for fans of documentaries, fans of style, and fans of interesting character studies. Anyone that really liked the Elaine Stritch documentary from a couple years back would probably find a lot of things that they really enjoy here as well. So very recommended.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. Like you guys, I didn't really know much about Rose Hartman, but those of us, those listeners who maybe are more into photography or especially iconic, celebrity fashion scene photography from around the era of the disco era of Studio 54, you probably have seen Rose Hartman's work, and the thing about the film was it was a well-made documentary, kept my interest throughout, from the filmmaking style, but also the subject, Rose Hartman herself, is, I mean, she is a real character, and
She's
her
incomparable.
her personality, basically jumps out of this documentary, and you, I mean, it will remind you of people that you know in your family or in your life, and we were lucky enough to just get a glimpse and meet her a little bit through Otis, and so I'm thankful for that. And I really like the doc, and I can't wait till it's out there. I'm sure it'll come around either in kind of a our house distribution, or perhaps even on VOD at some point. So keep an eye out for it. The Incomparable Rose Hartman.
Indeed.
Too bad we missed the screening where she came in on a horse.
I know, right?
That would have been something.
I know. In fact, that was at the premiere of the film, which is right up against the North American premiere of Midnight Special. So it was like, oh my gosh, which one do we go to? We ended up going to Midnight Special, so we're bummed that we missed Rose on a Horse. But we did get to meet her after the screening. Super, super awesome lady. Although I did feel like a little bit like she was maybe judging me on my Superman t-shirt, Superman t-shirt and cargo shorts. You know what I mean? I mean, she's a fashion photographer. I mean, so I'm kind of like, But yeah, good stuff.
It was weird for me too, because like she's a world-renowned, photographer. I mean, her images have been displayed in countless galleries and sold, around the world. And here I am trying to snap pictures of her with us. Like, I felt like really inadequate taking photographs of someone who's like taken some of the most iconic photographs in the world.
But you know what was cool?
Come over and say like, "Oh, the light's off." Do this.
I know.
Do that.
What was
You're not
cool,
really
though,
taking that picture, are you?
What was cool though is she did tell you had a good camera, Jim.
Oh yeah, she did, yeah. And it's not the camera, right?
It's the eye behind it.
That's right. It's not the size of the sword. It's the swordsman or whatever the hell it is. I forget.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. So, yeah, The Incomparable Rose Hartman. Don't miss it. We'll certainly be letting you guys know when it is out and available for you to see. So we'll keep you updated. But, guys, let's talk about some of the other films that we saw throughout the weekend. I know folks are anxious for us to get to Midnight Special, but we'll get there eventually. Calm your jets. Hold your horses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there soon. But let's just kind of run through a couple other films that we really enjoyed that we think folks may also enjoy. One of the ones that I want to give a shout out to is the new Richard Linklater film, Everybody Wants Some. You may have seen the trailer for this film. It's set in the 80s about a baseball team in college, and they're all walking around with their like Magnum PI mustaches and short, Daisy Duke shorts and, tank tops and, so if you get past the eye candy of the trailer and the great music, you're kind of like, what is this movie about? It kind of looks like a little Dazed and Confused-ish maybe. Like, is it a comedy? Is it not? Some of the critical praise for this film coming out of the festival and screenings has been, that it's awesome, that it's really deep, which I don't necessarily get. But going into this movie, I did not like Dazed and Confused. As much as I like some of Linklater's later films, it just didn't speak to me. Sorry. I see Will making weird faces at me. Mm-hmm. Jim is too.
Just
whatever.
More of a surprise look. But go for it. I'm sorry.
I am who I am. Whatever. You guys know that comedy has like a weird like. I have a weird relationship with comedy films. So going into this one, I'm kind of like, ugh, I don't know that I want to see this really. Especially because there were other things we wanted to see, and I'm like, really, this one's going to be out in like 3 weeks in theaters, But I actually ended up really loving this movie. I don't know if it's because I grew up in the 80s, and so, a lot of the music was sort of driving some nostalgia for me. It's really following these college-age guys, and I obviously did not go to college in the 80s. I was still drinking from Mississippi Cup in 1982 or whenever this movie was set. Or was it 80? Was it 1980? I think it was 1980, actually.
Yeah,
so I wasn't even born yet. But I actually ended up really, really liking this film quite a bit. I don't want to really give much away because, hey, you should go see it when it comes out. But definitely it's got a great soundtrack, Linklater is a phenomenal director. You know, after seeing the Before series of films, like I've really started paying attention to like tracking shots and one takes, and it's just so interesting now. Like I can pick out when he's doing it, and you'd think it would pull me out of it, but it actually pulls me in more. Like I'm so into like, oh my God, they've been walking and talking for like 4 minutes straight. This is amazing that they're doing that. So, just from a visual directorial style, it's great. I think the plot is fantastic. Great soundtrack. What did you guys think of this one?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Will.
Oh. I was going to say I enjoyed this one quite a bit as well. Definitely a lot of fun. The laughs pretty much hit. Richard Linklater is a fantastic filmmaker, so just about any time he steps behind the camera, or to the director's chair, that is, I'm interested. I'm engaged. I think the closest comparison to this one is going to be Dazed and Confused, in that like he has a few different styles of movie that he does, and this one is very much along those lines. I didn't like this one as much as Dazed and Confused. I think Dazed and Confused had a little bit more going on, but I still think this is a perfectly solid, perfectly enjoyable movie, and one that I would recommend.
Yeah, just a couple things I'll add. I enjoyed this one too. Maybe not quite as much as you, Brad, but I still love Richard Linklater's sensibilities and stuff. This one I think was maybe pushed the comedy a lot more than Dazed and Confused, where Dazed and Confused was more just a plain kind of slice of life, and any comedy there was in that movie came out of the characters more organically. This one definitely pushed the characters. It was about this group of college frat boys, I guess, but they weren't really frat brothers. They were on the college baseball team, and they all lived together. And it's about the camaraderie there. And so, I mean, yeah, I like this film a lot. Not as much as some of his more recent work. Definitely a little bit of Dazed and Confused in there, but also a little bit of kind of like the Bad News Bears in college. That's the way I would describe this movie, of which he did the Bad News Bears remake also. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I like this film. It was exactly kind of what I was expecting, no more, no less. I think it's worth a watch for good light entertainment.
There you go. All right. Well, Jim, what's a film that tripped your trigger?
Oh man, there was a film that played the festival. I didn't know anything about this film really going in, called Rainbow Time, and it's a Mark and Jay Duplass produced movie. So if you guys are familiar with any of their work, namely right now the show that's on TV called Togetherness, about relationships and families, this movie was kind of right up that alley, except this one was actually written and directed by this guy named Linus Phillips, who I really hadn't paid much attention to before, but he and he also stars in this as kind of one of the main characters. It's about Shanzi, right? It's about this developmentally delayed 40-year-old guy named Shanzi, played by the director and writer here, and he has to live with his brother, and it's about it's about their brotherly relationship, their family relationship. Shanzi has his challenges going on, and lo and behold, Todd does too. And this film is really heartwarming. I think it's intelligently written around material that can get really schmaltzy if it's not handled right. When you have, a developmentally delayed character as a character you're supposed to feel something toward, and this movie avoids that, but still manages to be funny and touching. It's called Rainbow Time. I'm not sure when we'll get to see this, but this is one I'm definitely going to be looking for. This one also has forget the character's name or the actress's name from Togetherness. She plays the wife. Her name
Melanie
is
Linsky.
That's right, Melanie Linsky, who also is really good in this movie. Loved her character. And Jay Duplass actually stars in this too. But yeah, it's called Rainbow Time, and this was one of the ones that kind of knocked me on the head. It's one of those films you don't know anything about going in. It doesn't get a lot of hype, but it's like you come out of the festival saying, "Wow, this is the one I'm going to think about for a while."
And it's so interesting too because we had talked to a couple people that had seen that movie before we were set to see it, and they were like, it wasn't so great, didn't really like it. It's one of the sleeper, like movies that you should just skip. And we saw this film, and like I just did not understand that. But then again, everyone's film sensibilities are different. I'm a huge fan of Togetherness. We saw Mark Duplass give an amazing keynote at last year's South by Southwest, just about doing crazy, like off-the-wall, offbeat projects. And when you sort of like read or hear what this film is about, you're kind of like, hey, I don't know if this is something that I'd really be into. But it ended up being one of my favorite films of the festival. I gave very few, like 5 ratings. Like the audience award is like 1 through 5. You rate each film you see. And this is one of them. It's a fantastic film. Could not believe how much I really, really enjoyed it. So definitely when this one comes out, it's one to see. Hey, real quick, we've got a live comment from a friend of the show who just tuned in. We actually got a chance to meet him and his friend at South by, Fernando Andres and Jason Pollard. Hey, guys.
Hey, guys.
We really loved running into you guys a couple of times.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, at the festival. We saw you at a screening we'll talk about here in a minute, but good to hear from you guys. It was cool hanging out and talking to you guys, so I hope that real life and now that spring break is over, everything is going okay at this point. But Will, what about you? What's a movie that got your excitement riled up?
Yeah, so there's this film that we ended up seeing, and we missed the first screening of it, and I think it was one that we were I think we'd resigned ourselves to not seeing this movie, and then it happened to pop up as a buzz screening at a spot where we had some availability. And for those that don't know, a buzz screening is there's these little buffer spots built into the schedule where you can they plug in movies that were very popular so that you can get an additional screening in. So we ended up going and seeing In a Valley of Violence. This is an R-rated revenge western. It's directed by Ty West. This is a guy who you may have seen some of his movies before. This is a guy that has several films that if you've been scrolling through Netflix, you may have come across things like The Innkeepers or The Sacrament. He did some stuff on the VHS series. A really solid horror director. And of course, here we get a very bloody, action-packed western starring Ethan Hawke as a man who comes across this town. And things happen, and he has to seek vengeance. Really cool supporting roles too. Karen Gillan, we know her as Amy Pond from the Doctor Who series. We've seen her in Oculus. She's in this. Also, quite a standout for me is John Travolta's performance here. John Travolta is usually a guy who, he comes across as very caricature for me in a lot of different things. It's just kind of who he is. He's an odd dude, and he comes across that way. And this felt like a really good role for him. I felt like this is some of the best stuff I've seen out of Travolta in a while, even though it wasn't a massive role. I thought this was a fun movie. I don't know that I would necessarily say this is a deep movie. This isn't the type of movie that's going to make you think for a long time, but it's certainly one that in the midst of it, while I was watching it, I had a lot of fun. Plus, it has one of the best movie dogs that I've seen in quite a long time.
Abby.
Yes. So if you're a dog, if you're a dog lover, I think you'll enjoy the performance this dog gives in this movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was a standout, and you're right on the John Travolta thing. Really surprising performance by Travolta. He added just a lot of some of the comedy to this pretty dark Western movie. Hey, I love Westerns. We don't have enough good Westerns these days.
Right.
And I know it's kind of a genre that's maybe run its course. But every once in a while, I like to see a good one put out, and this is definitely a fun one to watch. And nothing extravagant in the story, pretty straight ahead stuff, like you said, Will. But yeah, I really like this one too. It's called In a Valley of Violence. One to look for.
Indeed, good stuff. Well, moving along, my final like highlight pick is the movie. It's probably not one that's gonna like get tons of attention, unfortunately, even though I think it was great. It's a film called Black Mountain Poets, and basically it's about these two women, and they're on the run from the law, and they sort of con their way into a poetry retreat up in the mountains and spend a long weekend sort of learning to find themselves. And I won't give much more away. I've pretty much given you the synopsis in the trailer, but I really love this film quite a bit. Part of it I think is because I have a bit of a background in poetry. I'm just saying, I was in the poetry club when I was in middle school and high school, so I have written many a terrible poem in my life, and I know like the crazy anxiety that goes along with like reading your stuff aloud to other people and having to sit there while they critique you, and But that aside, Jim, do you have a poem or something? Is that what
Yeah, I have my receipt right here from when I bought the refrigerator, and it says, I'll just read do a little impromptu poetry. Approved. Purchase amount. Cash back. Change. Total number of items sold. Coupons tendered.
Deep! Oh my god, that just changed my life. So did the new refrigerator. Nice. But in any event, Alice Lowe played Lisa. She was fantastic. Dolly Wells was Claire. I really bought that these are two women who have a history together. I really also want to give a shout out to Tom Cullen, who played Richard. I've been trying to figure out where I had seen him before. Like, after we saw that movie for hours and hours and hours. And guys, no joke, I had a dream last night that solved the riddle for me. I was dreaming about
the riddle of the model.
Not the riddle of the model, but I was dreaming that I was the friend who lived next door to the guys who had the apartment in Andrew Haig's Weekend. And that's when it clicked. Tom Cullen is one of the main characters from Weekend. And I'm like, I've seen you naked. This is awesome. But anyway, good movie for me. Did you guys like this one at all?
I really did. This is the type of kind of lo-fi indie art house bullshit that usually trips my trigger, and it's quite good. We saw actually a couple of movies this festival that were kind of retrofitted scripts. In other words, they had a general outline, but the cast mostly improvised their lines. And the other example of it, we won't talk about that film here, wasn't very good, and it felt like it was improvised in the worst way possible. This one, it felt like if you give the right cast in the right spot with the right direction and just let them go, you can craft something phenomenal, and I think that's what they did here. I really enjoyed this. If I didn't know this was improvised work, I would have thought that this was a very tightly scripted film. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think that it's one that's probably not going to be super accessible to a lot of people in terms of distribution. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. But if you do get a chance to see it, Black Mountain Poets certainly did a lot for me.
Yeah, I was kind of middle of the road on this one. It's good. I liked some of the comedy in it, but there were a couple of hot bears in this movie, which kept my attention throughout the movie. However, there were way too because this took place in the mountains in inclement weather mostly. Everybody had their clothes on way too long. Yeah, so that was a bit of a tease. Like there were hot bears, but they were clothed almost all the time.
Yeah, so if this were instead like at
the
beach blanket poets instead, it might have been a little better for you.
Beach blanket poets would have been much better for me, anyway. Yeah.
Oh goodness. All right. Well, Jim, what is your last highlight pick?
Oh, I want to bring your attention to a movie called Sing Street, which I thought was a fantastic movie. This one is about a high school kid growing up in Dublin, Ireland during the early 1980s. And he's got, not a super rough family life, but he's got his struggles at home. His parents and so forth, and he's in a new school that he's trying to cope with, and he deals with this by starting a band. He actually meets a girl that he falls head over heels for. And to impress this girl, he takes to music and wants to start a band to impress this chick. He gathers his friends together, and they launch off on a with a band and try to make it, and he tries to get the girl. This is definitely a slice of life coming of age movie. Not a lot new here that we haven't seen, but what the hook of this movie is it's a very feel good movie. It's got some tremendous performances by some people that I don't even had never really seen before. The only face I kind of recognized was Jaeden Gillen was in this. He's the guy from Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. You guys may recognize somebody, some other the actors in here, but this movie is funny. The way it captures the '80s vibe, during that time of what do you want to call it at the time, like new wave, the emergence of the new wave music, like Duran Duran and Aha and some of those bands. And all I'd say is go out on the internet, go watch the video for this movie. There's it's not super spoily. It's just a video. It doesn't spoil really any plot stuff. It's called The Riddle of the Model. Go watch it. It'll give you a good flavor for this movie. This is kind of one of those feel-good movies, like if you watched Pride from a couple of years ago.
Yes,
it had the same kind of upbeat feel to me. This one is directed by John Carney, written and directed by John Carney. He did a movie called Once. I don't know if you guys remember that movie or had seen it.
God, yes.
Very well received movie. Again, around kind of a musical performance theme, but a relationship movie ultimately. The name of this one is called Sing Street. I think you're going to be hearing more about it as it gets released this year. I don't know what kind of release it's going to get or if it's going to catch on, but it has the potential to catch on as kind of a probably a smaller kind of indie breakout movie.
Riddle of the Model.
The Riddle of the Model.
Now that song is stuck in my head.
Again.
What did you think on this one, Brad?
I actually loved this movie, and this is one of those where, again, like seeing the trailer for this, I was a little on the fence as to whether I was actually going to like it or not, because I don't know, it looked kooky enough that I'm like, what the hell is this going to be?
Kind of.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. And first I looked it up, and I'm like, well, Ryan Murphy had nothing to do with it, so point one, advantage. But two, I was kind of like, well, I'm looking through some of the songs that are in the soundtrack, and I'm like, man, this thing has a banging soundtrack, but it's also got like a lot of original songs, and I'm like, holy God, that never goes over well in this kind of film that I've seen in the past. But I gotta say, I fell in love with this movie. In fact, as much as I love Duran Duran and Aha and all the other Flock of Seagulls, as much as I love those guys, I actually love the original songs more in this film. So many great performances. In fact, walking out of this movie, the first thing I wanted to do was download the soundtrack from iTunes. I was like, I have to have it. And then I'm like, oh shit, this movie doesn't come out for like 7 more weeks or something. Or is it next week? I don't even know anymore.
It's sometime in April, yeah.
Yeah, but no soundtrack online. Of course, I can get the other stuff that has been out for 30 or 40 years, but unfortunately, the original songs, not so much. But totally fell in love with it. In fact, I definitely want to see this again when it comes out in theaters. How about you, Will?
Yeah, same boat. I love John Carney. I think Once is one of those movies that I would not shut the fuck up about when it first came out. But I was a little nervous about Sing Street. Just the description itself sounded a little pat by comparison. And I was absolutely wrong. Having seen the movie, I loved it as well. Very feel-good movie. The original music, as you guys mentioned, is top-notch. Like, every single one of the songs in the movie was one that I wanted to listen to again. It's not one of those movies that has just that one song that you keep hearing over and over again. Like, there are several from here that were standouts for me. So, yeah, this is a high recommendation as well. All of these movies that we're talking about today are high recommendations. That's the sign of a good festival.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. Well, Will, close us out. What's your last highlight pick?
Last highlight pick is one that is definitely more of a personal pick than anything else. It's a documentary called The Dwarvenaut. This is a film that is it's a very Dungeons and Dragons themed movie, and that's something that I've mentioned here on the show. That's been a big part of my life for a good number of years. This film follows this guy named Stefan Pokorny, who is this adopted art prodigy who becomes obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons. He develops this this talent for creating models and miniatures and terrain and stuff like that, and he decides to turn his passion into a Kickstarter project. So one of the things that was really exciting for me about this, when we read the book, it was just like a Dungeons and Dragons themed movie, and Brad and I were like, yeah, we'll see that. That sounds fun. And then about 10 minutes into the movie, I realized, oh my god, I kickstarted that. I bought the thing this is a documentary about the thing that I have in my house right now. So that was really exciting. So yeah, if this is another one of those fun documentaries that kind of helps. If you've ever had kind of a passion or a dream or something that you really want to follow, this is kind of a good one for that. You can kind of turn your hobby into something that can be profitable. Also, it's a very interesting character study of an extremely quirky dude. So if those types of documentaries work for you, then I think you'll enjoy The Dwarvenaut. Brad, as a fellow D&D fan, how many +1s did you give this one?
Oh, this easily had a +5 to Brad enjoyment. I mean, on the surface, there's so much here that I was excited about, and I didn't even see a trailer for this movie. I mean, we just read the description, but I was like, oh my god, D&D, this sounds amazing. I can't wait. I guess going in, I was thinking it was going to be more of a D&D focused documentary as opposed to the life of this guy and his Kickstarter. The D&D element was there, and it's certainly a part of it, but I don't know that I would really classify this as a D&D focused documentary. It's more of just that's the environment that this guy and what he's doing exists in. So I think it's interesting. I think some of the things that they did with the theatricality of their Kickstarter videos and the costumes and weapons was kind of neat. But I don't know. I thought it was awesome learning about this guy and his passion for the project. And he's gone on to have other projects since then. And we got to see him in the bar afterward, hanging out with his girlfriend. He was totally making out with her with his tongue down her throat. And I'm like, who is that guy? Why is he doing that? And then I'm like,
with the weird hat.
I'm like, that's the guy from the movie. And apparently he has a +10 with the ladies. Whoa. But yeah, it was good. I liked it. How about you, Jim?
Oh yeah, this was one of those movies that I wasn't expecting a lot out of. I am not a D&D player. I'm not a D&D fan like you guys, so I'm going into this oh, what is this going to be? And to my surprise, my pleasant surprise, this was about this character, Alex Pokorny. And I mean, you can't help but fall in love with this guy, right? He had an adopted childhood where he was adopted by a family, but then they didn't want him, so he was adopted by another family. And he had some learning issues with school, not fitting in his environment in school. And late in life, he discovers this talent that he has. He developed this talent as an artist, but late in life he discovered and hit his stride in developing these D&D what do you call them, buildings and caves and castles and stuff, and created a business out of this. And the guy's what do you call it? Just joy of life is really contagious and comes across in the documentary. And he's definitely a guy you'd want to sit and have a beer with and crack up with. He doesn't seem to take things too seriously, although the movie does have its really touching moments. And I love this documentary for being able to kind of really shine a light on this guy and introduce us to a fascinating individual. I gave this movie a 5 as well.
Indeed. Awesome stuff. Well, gosh, there's so much more that we could talk about, but we still have a movie to review, and we're almost an hour in. I think this whole thing where we're like, we're going to schedule 25 minutes for this, never works out for us.
Yeah.
We cannot be contained, but that's okay because it's great conversation. And just one more thing that I want to add before we segue from South by. Just want to give a great big shout out and thank you to Janet Pearson. She is the head of programming and creative for South by Southwest Film, and also to all of the volunteers at South by Southwest who, my God, put in so many man hours before, during, and after this festival to make it work, to make it, for the most part, seem pretty effortless and working very well. So you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to come to the festival, see all these great films, and we'll definitely be back next year. Fingers crossed, we hope, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a festival I'm kind of in love with, and I just love the programming that they have. I mean, they have genre movies that they play typically at midnighters, and throughout the festival they have some headliners, movies like we're going to talk about in a little while, with Midnight Special and Demolition, and they even show like some movies that are coming out like Keanu, and just last year we saw we didn't get to see Mad Max Fury Road, but George Miller was there. So I just love the breadth and variety that this festival puts on, and how smoothly it runs too. I mean, we've kind of got it down to a science at this point, the way we take in South by, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I just really look forward to it.
Oh yeah, definitely, agreed. And last thing we want to do real quick, want to give a shout out to Paul Alderete, who we had the pleasure of hanging out with. In fact, right after we saw The Dwarvenaut, he was in the bar while the making out was going on. But he is listening right now and sent us a picture of him listening to you, Jim.
Oh.
And how meta is this? While I've got the screenshot of Jim on Paul's screen, I wanted to say, Jim, I love your new poster setup behind you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
One of them is obviously The Good Dinosaur over here on this shoulder, and over here on this shoulder is a poster I picked up at what's called the Guzu Gallery.
Gallery, yeah.
In Austin, where they specialize in, kaiju kind of posters and figures and stuff like that. We went in there and I'm like, oh, great. And I knew I was going to probably end up dropping some money, but not as much as I actually ended up spending on that poster and also on this poster right here, which is a Godzilla versus Robbie the Robot print.
Yes.
Which is really cool that I loved. So I kind of love that place, and we picked up a few things. So,
indeed, it was awesome. So, Paul, thank you so much for telling us about Zuzu Gallery. Awesome place. Great to see you in person, guys. Who else did we see this weekend? David Massey. We saw. Who else? I'm totally drawing a blank.
Our friend Dave as a volunteer.
Dave Siegel, right? Yeah, Dave.
Right.
Great to see you, Dave. And Donald Mason, great to see you.
Yeah.
You know who we did not see this weekend, guys? And then I promise you we'll get to the movie. You know who we totally missed?
Who's that?
Sorry.
Adrian Charlie.
That's right. Yep. No Adrian.
No Adrian. You got to come back next
festival,
year.
but it really wasn't the same without Adrian.
Yeah. It wasn't. So Adrian Charlie from the Green Screen of Death podcast, we miss you. We heart you. We hope to see you back next year. Guys, are we ready? Are we good to go for our movie, you think? You ready to switch gears?
Hold on. It's a little bright in here, I think. Okay, now I'm ready.
Put your protection on, Will.
Yeah.
Put your protection on.
I'm good. Let's do this thing.
You're so special, Will. Put on your glasses and your little blanket hood and get ready to go.
Let's do it.
All right. So, for those of you who are not familiar with our format, we're going to talk about Midnight Special spoiler-free for about 10 minutes or so. We'll give you some impressions on whether we think you should see this film. I do want to note it is not available everywhere yet. It is marked as in wide release. But for instance, not playing here in Tucson yet, and not sure when it will be. So if it's not in your area yet, it will be soon. But don't feel like you have to bail now, because we will give you some advice and then give fair warning before we get to spoilers. So with that said, here we go, our discussion of Midnight Special. And now I totally have Midnight Train to Georgia stuck in my head, which has nothing to do with anything except having midnight in the title.
It's funny because ever since seeing this movie, I've had Creedence Clearwater's Midnight Special in my head. Do you guys know that one?
Yeah, but at least that makes sense because it has the same freaking name as the movie.
Yeah, I know. But
I've still got the Riddle of the Model stuck in my head, so I don't know.
Riddle of the Model. Anyway, Will, why don't you give us the setup for this one and let listeners at home know if you think they should see it once it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start with the IMDb description, which for once the IMDb description kind of works. Isn't too spoilery or anything like that. Here we go. Midnight Special. A father and son go on the run, which rhymes and is awesome. After the dad learns his child possesses special powers. Done. That's it. Nice description. I like that one. It gets right to the point of it. So yeah, a little bit about this movie. So this is director Jeff Nichols. This is a guy that we're big fans of here at Movie Bears Podcast. This is the guy that's directed things like Take Shelter and Mud, a movie that, again, we just would not shut up about a few years ago. Starring Michael Shannon, Joel Edgerton, Kirsten Dunst, Adam Driver, Kylo Ren is in this as well. And yeah, that's basically the premise. You've got Michael Shannon, Joel Edgerton, and this kid with these weird powers on the run in the kind of back roads of Texas, and you find out that there's some sort of special powers to this kid. This is a sci-fi film, as you can kind of get from that description. Something that isn't really something that Nichols is known for. Like, this isn't a guy who makes sci-fi movies. This is a guy that makes kind of Southern character dramas. And this film is both of those things. The science fiction elements are wonderful. The heart, the character development, the growth, and all of those Jeff Nichols sensibilities are all 100% present here. This is the type of science fiction that I absolutely love. It's different, it's original, it's unique, it has personality and heart. And it doesn't feel like anything else, or it doesn't feel wholly like anything else that's out there. This was a strong recommend for me, one that I enjoyed quite a bit and that I want to go back and watch again because there's so many mysteries I feel that there's still left to untangle.
Yeah, and I think, certainly the movie does a job at taking you from point A to B to C, and, eventually you arrive at certain answers, and I won't say any more because, like I said, I don't want to spoil. But I like that it also leaves you with questions that you have to answer for yourself. In fact, like at the Q&A afterward, right? Like someone asked the director, like, "Hey, so what was so and so? Like, does this mean da 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 da? Like, what was that?" And the director's like, "My answer to you is, how about you find your friends, go find somewhere to get some pie and talk about it for a few hours and come up with your own answer." And I was like, yes, I love that so much. Like, sometimes I don't like to be spoon-fed a pat ending, right, or an answer for answer's sake. So I really enjoyed that about this film. Also really loved a lot of the performances. Michael Shannon is an absolute delight in everything he's in, except Man of Steel. And not because Michael Shannon was necessarily bad, I just think they did a horrible job with Zod in his characterization and script in that movie. But loved seeing him here. Joel Edgerton, who, my God, that guy just continues to up his game. He didn't have the meatiest of roles here, but really enjoyed him. He also looks really hot in cop getup, I'm just saying. Kirsten Dunst, loved Kirsten Dunst in this movie. I feel like the world needs more Kirsten Dunst again. We're ready for that. Kirsten, if you're listening, come back to us. Be in more things. We would like that. Don't let Reese Witherspoon have all the home girl next door roles, because you know what? you're good for them too. Adam Driver, Kylo Ren. Interesting seeing him in this movie. The whole time he's on screen, all I can think of is Matt, the radar technician. Like, so like what it reminded me of. You know what I mean? In fact, yeah, I won't say any more until spoilers. But and then the kid who plays Alton, Jaeden Lieberher, if that's how you pronounce it, I'm not sure. Lieberher. You know our history with precocious kids on the Movie Bros podcast. We hate them. But I totally dug this kid. I think he did a great job. And I think that, I don't know, there's going to be some more cool stuff coming down the pipeline with him in it that I will totally see. Also enjoyed seeing Sam Shepard. Where has he been? It's been a while. I was pleased to see him in this film as well. So yeah, I mean, great plot. This is definitely a big recommend from me, for sure. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, a big recommend for me, too. This is one of those movies I'm going to have to go rewatch because this is a movie where it is a science fiction movie, but it's kind of wrapped in a mystery and layers of questions, which when the movie starts, boy, and this isn't a spoiler, but this movie doesn't explain a lot. I mean, you are put right into the middle of the plot, and away you go. And one of the things about Jeff Nichols is his movies are not going to, like you said, Brad, spoon feed you. You're going to have to get those answers organically from the story. And guess what? You may not even get all the answers that you want. And therefore, I know that people are going to. Some people may see this and be disappointed because it's not like the typical Hollywood sci-fi movie where by the end, you know, they try to explain everything. This movie doesn't do that. It's going more for kind of a feeling of wonder and mystery. This movie reminded me a lot. While I think it is original, it reminded me a lot of two movies were stuck in my head when I was watching this. One is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the other movie is Starman. If you guys remember Starman with Jeff Bridges. I was reminded of both those movies as this movie played out. Not that this movie derives anything from them, but just kind of the feeling that we got. Yeah, I would recommend this movie. I can't wait till it gets in more theaters so people can see it. I think all the performances are great. Just you don't even really know what's going on until probably most of the way through this movie. And again, some people maybe get to the end of this movie and be a little disappointed because there seems to be a lot left on the table in terms of unanswered questions. But hey, that's the way it is, and I think this movie is better for not giving a pat answer to everything.
Yeah, I think that's part of what's so refreshing about the mysteries that are the mysteries that are both solved and the ones that are left unsolved by this movie. I think about things like. Think about some very classic episodes of The Twilight Zone or Outer Limits or something along those lines. These are shorts, episodes that followed one sci-fi conceit to the point of just kind of exploring what would happen. You didn't have to have an explanation of what that thing was on the wing and where it came from and what its origin story was and where it went next. What you got was a story about a man hallucinating up in an airplane about some sort of creature on the plane. That's all you needed. And with this film, you get some of that same stuff. You don't have everything wrapped up and very tidy and very neat by the end of it, but what you do have is enough to have that dialogue, to think about it afterwards. I feel like I know what happened, and you probably feel like you know what happened. And the great thing is we can probably have both very divergent responses and both be 100% correct based on what's been presented by the film. I love that. I love that in a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And like I said, the science fiction aspects of this and fantasy aspects of this, are all there. And again, it doesn't reveal itself all at the same time. It's a slow build toward the climax of the movie, and that's a kind of a trademark of all of Jeff Nichols' films so far. Take Shelter was that way. Even Mud, which was totally not a science fiction movie, was that way. It kind of built slowly toward its climax, so that by the end you have a sense of who these characters are and what the stakes are.
And Brad,
Sorry,
you good?
guys. I'm good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm having sound routing back and forth between two different devices, so sorry about that. I only caught like the last 20 seconds. So
That's all right.
anyway,
We spoiled everything. Sorry, Brad.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all good.
Want us to go into spoilers?
No. All right. So Jim, make an editing note to find your silence.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna come back in.
I'm sure I'll find it.
All right. Yeah, Jim, absolutely. I mean, 100% on board with everything that you just said. One thing I do want to do before we move on to spoilers for Midnight Special, because this person may be listening right now. I don't know. But, guys, we crossed the 3,000 like mark on Facebook while we were at South by.
Wow.
Da-da-da!
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we did. And I was like, man, I need to go back and find out because, we're like, I don't know, we've gone past it at this point. But I was like, I need to go back and figure out who was 3,000 because if you remember, we said we had a T-shirt for whoever was our 3,000th like. And guys, guess who number 3,000 was?
Who?
Janet Pearson.
No, I wish because Janet is amazing. No, Jason Pollard.
Oh, cool! That's awesome.
Yeah, he liked us at the festival, and he is our 3,000th like. It's crazy. I promise you, it's not rigged. If you pull it up and look at it, he is number 3,000. So, Jason, if you're listening, great. If not, we'll find you on Facebook. We just need to get your address and your T-shirt size.
Thanks, Jason.
One of our T-shirts out to you. But yeah, thank you so much for supporting the show. We appreciate it. Man. Totally awesome that it kind of worked out that way. That's crazy.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Da, da, da.
Too bad it couldn't have been Rose Hartman.
Oh my God, she would not wear our T-shirt, guys. It is not fashion. It is not fashion forward.
She is a well-dressed woman.
Yes, she is definitely. Maybe if we put a bird on it, I don't know.
And a big old flower over here.
Yeah, totally. It could be a hummingbird with a flower, made out of sequins that cost more than a year of my salary. Because she's amazing. But yeah, so how are we feeling? Are we ready for spoiler talk? Are we there?
Let's jump in.
Yes, yeah. I think so. I think universal praise. We all like this movie. Now let's talk about why.
Totes, my goats. All right, so if you value your virginal innocence from Midnight Special, get the fuck out. But if you don't care or you've already seen the movie, go ahead and stick with us. And I see a couple people dropping off already. To those who drop off, we salute you because I understand not wanting to be spoiled. So hopefully you'll be back in 10 or 15 minutes for plugs. But yeah, so one thing I wanted to talk about, just because it's been in my mind, I know it's the most minor thing in the universe where the plot line of this movie is concerned. But there's a certain part where Adam Driver is reading off words in this sermon that's part of this mystery, and one of the phrases that Adam Driver says is "red saber."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I'm
these are code words, right? That are in these in this encrypted message, right? Yeah.
And he even changes his voice a little bit. I don't know if you noticed. He's all Queen of Hearts, diagram of Physophilus, red saber. I was like, oh my God, color red. Yeah, anyway.
Easter eggs are fun.
They are.
That's a subtle one, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one that ultimately it doesn't derail from the plot. If you've never heard of Star Wars, that reference doesn't subtract anything from the viewing experience here of Midnight Special.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Well, speaking of the viewing experience, guys, where do we want to start on this one?
Well, we talked about there's a lot of questions surrounding the main story, and the boy who's at the center of this story, named Alton, right, is his name. I thought they were saying Elton, but it's Alton. And obviously, so at the end of the movie, and we are in spoiler territory, he is it's hard to say. Is he not? Is he not human? Is he human from another dimension? All those things could be possible. We don't know how he was born, what caused him or created him to be to have the powers that he has. But we do learn at the end that he belongs to kind of a parallel universe, I guess, that exists, quote unquote, on top of ours. And we get to see a little bit of that at the end, and that explains a little bit as to why he's kind of all-knowing and powerful. Doesn't explain all his powers, but again, they don't reveal any of this until very, very close to the end. We don't really know what's going on with this kid. Apparently, the characters in the story kind of know that he's super special. There's this church group, this fanatical religious group that is pursuing him because they believe he is some sort of oracle that is going to, provide them, the coordinates for, to be saved or for the, rapture or whatever it is. There's, of course, the army, and not the army, but the intelligence agencies that are trying to get a hold of him because they think he knows launch codes or attack coordinates or something like that. And then there's the parents, which is Kirsten Dunst, Michael Shannon, and aided by Joel Edgerton, who I assume is a friend of the family, all trying to protect the boy from these agents. But yeah, I mean, some of the questions that linger are pretty strong, and maybe with another viewing we may get more clues to that. I don't know, so that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think what's so great about this one is it does drop us right into the action. At the very beginning of this movie, Michael Shannon, his son, and Joel Edgerton are already on the run. The little boy already has his goggles on and is blanketed up, and everything is like blocked away from the sun, which is problematic for him. So they already know kind of what his strengths and weaknesses are to a degree at the beginning of this movie, and I loved that. This wasn't an origin story. Like, we didn't have to sit through the genesis of who this kid was and how he got to be what it was. We got to just experience this sci-fi kind of mind-bender kind of unravel in front of us. I loved that every time you introduced a new character, they weren't having to be caught up to the storyline. Everyone came to this story with different pieces of information already, whether it be the Kirsten Dunst character, those cult leaders, I keep wanting to say the Kylo Ren character, but the Adam Driver character. Everyone comes to this with a little piece of the puzzle, and even at the end of this, I don't know what all of the puzzle pieces are.
Agents every day.
Yeah. I think the other thing that was kind of neat about this was it was able to get away with a lot by getting away with a little. We're very readily aware of just the scope of this kid's power, what he's capable of, or maybe not even knowing everything that he's capable of. But this was done, and I don't remember what the exact number is, but this was done on a fairly low budget. There were a lot of very smart decisions in terms of like how to showcase what they were showing that were made here. This film didn't rely on massive like minute-long CGI sequences and anything like that. There were a lot of really smart effects used at the right time to just give us the scope of this kid's power. I love that.
Yeah, one of the other things that was kind of maybe a slight knock on the movie for me is that this was a movie that built toward this crescendo climax, and I kind of wanted it to maybe be a little bit more emotionally pulling for me, and I never got that. And I think now that I think back on it, it was due to there was always this kind of emotional coolness between the boy and everybody else, like he was this alien creature or whatever he was, and he knew that. And maybe everybody else knew it, but the audience certainly didn't know it. And you sensed that there was something up because even though Michael Shannon was the father character and Kirsten Dunst was the mother character, and they obviously loved this boy, you never got a sense for that emotional tie-in, that emotional strength. and therefore the ending I think was maybe robbed of an emotional punch because it lacked, just that relationship, kind of that depth of relationship. It was almost like they were more protecting an asset, even though it was their son, and they mentioned that several times. It was kind of like he was an asset or this kind of fragile thing that had to be protected. But the connection there was a little weak for me.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you're saying. At the moment at the end where he has let the sun charge him up and he creates this bubble that sort of connects them to the upper plane of existence.
To Tomorrowland.
To Tomorrowland, yeah, exactly.
Tomorrowland.
Well, that's totally what it looked like. So, way to go, Jim.
Yeah.
But Kirsten Dunst, she has this moment where she's letting her son go and walk to the aliens or whatever, and I'm thinking to myself, I should be missing up right now. She's this mother, she's been protecting her son. Now she has to let him go. She'll never see him again, probably. But I didn't really feel that. I was more like, oh look, glowy aliens. Oh look, cool alien structures. I wasn't like, oh my God, Kirsten Dunst's character. My heart goes out to you. This is so sad. So, Jim, I definitely see what you mean, and I don't know if they were trying to create that distance and separation. I mean, we know that the boy has been separated from his mom for a little while at least, right? Because they've been on the road, and then they had to give the boy up to this cult, right, for a couple of years. So, in a way, I mean, maybe that's where the boy's distance from them is coming from, because he spent a couple years with this cult rather than with his parents or something. I don't know. I need to see it again because I was a little sleepy, so the time frame of all that is a little fuzzy. I was sleepy when I was seeing the movie, is what I meant to say. Was he with the cult for a couple of years, or had it only been a few months? It was a couple of years, right?
It seemed like it was a
clear.
couple of years. I don't. Yeah. But there's not. I don't think that there's a firm timeline. I bet. Maybe you can piece together some things on a studious rewatch. I'm sure someone's done one of those things on the internet where they've pieced together every section of it, and because of this calendar in the background, and he's 3 months earlier. So I'm sure that does exist. But yeah.
So maybe that's where some of the distance comes from. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, it just lacked as much of a wallop in the payoff as I was hoping for. And but the sense that I did get in that climax was that, oh wow, this is cool. There's this alternate universe of these beings that kind of are here but not visible in this alternate universe that are almost in a way kind of protecting us and he was kind of why he was here. It wasn't clear whether he was here to protect us from something, or it didn't really all come together, clearly at the end. But that's okay, because I did get this overall cool sense of, hey, there's this society of beings of which this kid belongs to, and he's here kind of as a almost like a savior, kind of like it's kind of this movie had a pseudo-religious overtones to it a little bit, and that's something that I'd like to maybe explore more. I wish we had Jeff Nichols on the show, but then he'd just tell us, oh, go talk about it.
Right, go talk about it.
Yeah, go talk about it. I'll be around.
Which is totally fine too. I think that's part of the excitement of this film. I think while I had less of an issue with maybe the emotional resonance, I was kind of picking up part of what this film was putting down. I think what I would consider more of a fault was I feel like the Adam Driver character is sort of underutilized in the resolution of the film. I feel like he kind of drops out at a particular point, and they don't know what to do with him as much. And so that was maybe a little disappointing. I don't know. I'm not talking about what I would change with that particular, but I feel like there was something a little missing with that character's resolution.
Yeah, I mean, he was in there to kind of give us. Although this movie wasn't heavy on exposition, I mean, he was there to kind of give us whatever exposition that we could get out of it.
Yeah,
That
and
was the purpose. Yeah.
and as soon as he was done giving that and kind of delivering the boy to where he needed to be delivered, like
Right.
not only did the film not have much left to do with him, but even the other characters were just like, nope, we don't want you anymore. The story is like, nope, we don't want you anymore. He's like, okay, I guess I'll just go fuck off now.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there's a point where like he delivers the boy, and they're about to take him away, and he's like, "Can I go with you?" And they're like, "Nope,
Nah.
nah,
Stay
see you
here.
later." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? You're missing out on like this crazy perfect moment to have, Adam Driver do more cool stuff." But would have made it a little more bloated, I guess, than it already was, kind of towards the end. I know we need to get to plugs and wrap up here in just a little bit, but real quick, what did you guys think of that pitiful like army barricade, like 2 little trucks and some like spikes on the road?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they weren't. Well, here's the thing: they weren't expecting an armed armada coming at them, right? It was just basically 2 guys and a little boy and a couple of guns. I think they probably felt like they had it handled, but as we saw, now did the boy pull any extra power stuff to get through that? I forget.
Yeah, he was doing some I forget all the different stuff, but sort of like turn here, turn there. They're up
What do
there.
you mean you forget, Will? I mean, it was only 30 movies ago. Come on.
Yeah, I know, right? But I do remember him doing some shenanigans there. Some of it with kind of like the kind of sensing where stuff was, and I think there was also some EMP stuff he did. But I don't remember if that was earlier in the movie or just there. But yeah, he did some shenanigans too to kind of keep things moving.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know if this movie is gonna appeal to. This movie is kind of like, how we love The Witch,
Yes.
but it definitely wasn't for every audience. This may be that in a slightly. I think it'll appeal to more people, but still, I think there's definitely an audience here that's just not really going to click with this movie. It does play its hand very slowly compared to other sci-fi adventure movies, and like I said, the payoff isn't super powerful. So, yeah. So, like I said, I loved it. I want to see it again. I also want to see what Jeff Nichols does next because I love this guy as a filmmaker. But as far as recommending it, it would be a recommend for me, but to the right audience, if that makes sense.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Mhm.
I can't think of anything else that rhymes with indeed.
I probably could.
I peed?
Oh, did you?
No, that rhymes.
There
with
was
indeed.
there was one moment at South by where that almost happened. I had to pee so bad. Oh my gosh. But the movie was so captivating. I didn't want to miss one moment of it. So anyway, TMI.
Well, I am glad that you didn't. I am very glad.
It wasn't Pee-wee, was it?
No,
Yeah.
I actually got up and walked out of the Pee Wee movie to pee because I'm like, I know what this is. I'm not going to miss anything important. So, yeah, it was all good. Well, guys, why don't we get to some plugs and wrap up here? Jim, what have you got this week?
Okay, I managed to watch one extra movie that wasn't part of South by exactly. Although we mentioned on the last show that we saw a movie called Demolition by a director, Jean-Marc Vallée from Canada, who also did Wild, and he did Dallas Buyers Club. And another director. There's several directors in Canada that I am absolutely in love with their work. And so I went back. Someone told me I should watch this movie, Café de Flore, which was the movie that Jean-Marc Vallée did before Wild, or maybe even before Dallas Buyers Club. I forget.
Yeah.
But anyway, this movie was really good. It's a love story between a man and a woman, and it's kind of like 2 love stories between a man and a woman, and then this mother and her autistic son, and the stories are linked, but I don't want to give anything away other than to say that, and that's pretty obvious from the beginning because it kind of shows. It's one of those movies that shows these 2 stories, and you're like, what the hell do they have anything to do with each other? And then as the movie progresses, you begin to see some things, and I just love this guy's sensibilities, the way he deals with relationships, and the name of the movie is called Café de Flore, Flore, and it is in French, so it is subtitled, but it's definitely worth seeing.
All right. Awesome. Will, how about you?
I, on the other hand, was feeling absolutely sick over the weekend after South by Southwest, and decided, you know what, I can take a break from movies for a day or two. So what am I going to plug? Guys, Season 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race is on Amazon VOD. I watched a bunch of that yesterday. It's mindless. Go watch that. I don't know. That's my plug.
All right. For me this week, the Bowtop Movie Bears are having an outing tomorrow. It'll be my first movie since South by. I have been in desperate need of movie like detox, I guess. I've been watching Nurse Jackie, so detox is on the brain. But come out and join us tomorrow night. We are going to see Whiskey Tango Fox Trot. Details are on the Bowtop Movie Bears Facebook page. Make sure that you book or purchase your tickets online. I'm so fucking tired, guys. Oh my god. Make sure to buy your tickets online because it is reserved seating, and even though it is a Tuesday, Roadhouse Cinemas, where we're going to see Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, does this really cool like $6 Tuesday special price. Plus, for like $19.95, you get like, for two people, I think it's a big bowl of bottomless popcorn and 2 of their entrees. So it's kind of Alamo Drafthouse style. It's really, really good deal. So come hang out with us tomorrow evening. Again, Bowtop Movie Bears on Facebook. Find us, stalk us, whatever. We'll see you there. I think, guys, that wraps us up for this week. What?
Yeah. What? I was just going to say, like, oh, that was probably our lowest energy episode yet. You can tell, like, you know, the South by Sick blues have got us all. So I hope everyone got quite a bit out of this, and I apologize to anyone listening. If they're just like,
it was fine. It was fine. You may have felt that, but I don't think that's what we ended up delivering. So.
I don't know. I did. Yeah. Probably just because I'm sick and everything.
You're just feeling lousy.
Yeah. No, I think it was a good show. Our energy may not be what it is typically, but you know what? That's all right. It is what it is. We do this show to have fun and maybe, have friends have fun too. So it was still fun.
But we talked about like 7 or 8 movies in this episode, so it's all good.
And I want this to not discourage anyone. I've said multiple times on the show, like, hey, if you want to be the type of you should go to a local film festival, go to an international film festival, go to a film festival sometime. If you haven't been to one before, it is exciting. It's fun. Your body is beat up after it, but it is in the best way possible. Like, I'm still riding this absolute glow from the last week.
Totally. And here's one more thing that I'm going to say. Somebody commented on Facebook recently that, like, you can only go to these festivals if you're, like, a millionaire or something. And that's not true. If you book early, I mean, tickets are, film badges can be expensive. But one thing you can do, I mean, if you write your own blog, if you do a podcast, if you do anything that could remotely be considered some kind of digital media, even if you frickin' write for your college newspaper or something, you can fill out a press application. You can potentially get into festivals like South by Southwest for free. So if you have something that qualifies, don't be afraid to apply and see what happens. And there's a cat in front of my camera whose bushy black tail is blocking my view. Anyway,
you're totally right, Brad. And even if it's not South by Southwest or Toronto or one of like the ones that are considered one of the bigger ones, like I'm on the programming board for the Austin Gay and Lesbian International Film Festival, and this is a 4-day film festival where you can watch, like, if you watch everything during the course of the week, that's like a good 15 movies over the course of that weekend, and the tickets for that are a little over 100. So, like, depending on the type of festival that you're doing, certainly the price will vary a bit, but yeah, between local things, between writing and press outlets, there's a lot of ways to make these very affordable.
Absolutely. And you know what? You could even start a blog now and get like 40 written movie reviews under your belt or something, and then apply in January and maybe get in as press, get some content. Do it. The world needs more movie reviewers. That is my opinion.
There aren't enough reviewers. There aren't enough critics out there, apparently.
That's right. That's right. All right, everyone. Take it easy. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.